It's just groundwater.
Yeah. So Ron, I missed last month's meeting. You guys talked a little bit more about the food shelter, the food pantry out.
Yeah,
That's dead, right?
yeah, they're trying to find their own separate lot if they can.
Were they told that? It didn't really say in the minutes, just kind of.
Yeah, they do that,
Okay.
yeah. Here comes Dale. Hey, Dale.
Dale, we've met before, but we've been on these Zoom calls.
I know.
So,
Been a long time.
yeah. Love it.
How you been? Good.
Hey Larry, can you see that now?
Yes, that looks good.
You started abstract company, right? Okay, so that was you, and now your son, Kurt, and he's kind of taking, you're completely retired.
Basically, yeah, sold for an actor, but I actually sold it to a company out of Bismarck. So North Dakota, that's the one that I can't help about.
So Kelsey, how do I know if there's any Kirk
It's just, textbook right off there.
you know, that are
He's got
analysts
what
that
you
don't
built
pop
that
up
business and then
from here?
But I had an office for 10 years over for Southwest Corner.
You know,
So in that lot, came up about the lot, built there,
I bought it one at a time. No, it's a long.
how many lots were?
Ooh, five,
You bought
six,
six,
I think it's 6 lots.
6 lots. you bought?
When you stop sharing, that's what.
3 on,
They don't see.
over speed and 3 over,
oh, here we go.
There you go.
well, it's long facing. But
I just gotta bring my screen.
Where did you go to build?
You wanna freeze that up there?
What decade?
yeah, I built it, about 20 years ago.
Why do you do that?
You go to more.
So a long way, 20 years.
Oh, yeah, just 100 that. It's been 18 years.
18 years.
You might-
Yeah.
No, that's for you.
We
Yeah.
signed a
Special thank you.
for a house.
Yeah.
Right.
So I bought it in 60.
But you built the building.
Yeah.
You built it.
I think that's all you
And I
got.
had,
Hey, you know what?
and I had metal company 10 years before that. Over in Southwest.
Oh, right, so that's where the house, and then you built the building.
Right. So 5 years into renting, I started buying these lots. Actually, about 4 years. I had 10 years. You know, the house is 20, comfortably 22, 25 people, and I only had 2 people in it.
I figured I had no say, it was a journey meeting last month. So.
So no,
I knew there was a need.
yeah. Kelso, the weekend.
Good. Perfect weather.
One word, anyone?
Water. It's like right.
Are you
Weather
going to
for it.
meeting?
Be a little hot this weekend when it's on.
I don't think so. What are you, I hadn't been told otherwise.
They're 13, 11,
On there, I just see
yeah,
Larry.
5.
Yeah.
So. I think you'll be in 8th grade, 6th grade.
There's GL.
Yeah, you went on that, what's that?
Yeah, Harlan, all Bunyan.
We made it up to the ball running.
No, we say it's
5 miles off.
usually long. Yeah, we say it's really 40 camps. And then,
You're
little park.
a camper, like a tent camper?
No.
Phil, are you saying there's something wrong with camping in a tent?
There is for guys my size. And even in a tent, yeah, tent is out of the question. One of those little trailers you pull around is out of the question too,
Yeah, the beds aren't very big.
for me.
Do you need a hotel room?
Ideal.
Yeah,
Ideal. It's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah,
in
you
person.
do, well, yeah.
my idea of camping is the Holiday Inn Express. That's the lowest one we've been up to. You know, I just, you know,
Oh, there's nothing better than the type.
I'll let you tell me all I was gonna say. I can give you like 4 or 5 other things that might be.
SWAT
going on.
mosquitoes.
Kudos to you. That's, well, high school baseball coach turned into summer baseball coach. I tell you what, I'm not a good match. I'm really not. So they must be really big about it. I want to win. And I just think kids want to have fun a lot of times. They don't care about winning. I can't.
So it's high school done.
High school's done. The Legion is still playing because they're in playoffs.
Yep.
But so I was supposed to freshman team. But we're done.
Mike, I see that Tom is not with us. So if you want to chair the meeting, that would be great.
Jen was pointing that out as well. So, seeing that it is 4 o'clock and in honor of Tom, I will start call the meeting to order. And if he shows up, he can take over. I guess item 2 on the agenda is the minutes from the last month for the regular meeting held on May 4th. Any corrections, additions, or changes?
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Dale and a second by Ron. I see we have GL in attendance electronically, so we'll do by roll. Dale? Aye. Bill?
Aye.
Matt? And
Aye.
Ron. And GL?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Oh, any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
I didn't catch who seconded that. I'm sorry.
Ron?
Thank you.
Yep, sorry, we'll move that. All right, we also have under item 3A, financials from April 30, 2021. Everyone hopefully has had a chance to review. Any questions?
I got one question. And I don't know who answers this, maybe Larry, what is our capacity? Like as far as what we've got out in loans, what is our capacity? Could we double that, triple that? Are we at our max? Larry, maybe you could answer that?
Well, if you look at the various funds that we have, you can see that we have about I'm looking for the number here, and why that number doesn't seem to make sense here. But we have quite a bit of capacity. I can put together a report that will show exactly what we have for next month's meeting.
No,
That would be-
don't waste the time. I just want to know if every lot got bought tomorrow at the price it's at up in our industrial park, and they all wanted loans, could we?
Well, that depends on what the size of the loan is. But I would think we could service quite a few loans yet because we haven't been doing a lot of loan activity with the interest rates being as low as they have been.
I mean, one easy way to look at this, look at your cash. So your general fund, you got about 1.3 million. Your revolving fund, you got 551,000, right? Plus you got an extra 464,000 investments in your general fund. And that's just your cash for your development authority. That don't include, public utilities also have a loan fund. We also have some money left central initiative that can help with the loan too.
So there's lots of venues to use to do it. All right.
We just with interest rates being as reasonable as they have been, haven't had a lot of requests.
Okay.
Banks are hungry to make loans right now because they're sitting on a lot of PPP funds. At least that's been a primary factor in the last year.
Okay.
One question I have, Larry, is looking at the budgeted amount of insurance, which compared to what we're actually paying out this month or recommending for payout this month of $8,486 compared to $1,000 budgeted. What's the big difference?
Yeah, Heidi talked to me briefly about that, and she is looking into that because she doesn't think that that number is quite right. So she's going to come back to us next month with a better handle on that insurance cost.
So are you recommending that we not authorize payment on that?
I think we should defer authorizing the payment on that particular item. Yes.
All right. One other question I have, I'm looking at the budgeted numbers for 2021. I know that we have a couple of, I forget if we have scheduled payment dates for the obligations that the Development Authority has. So like the $50,000 payment on public utility loan for the LCCC, the Midtown Development interest, $10,000 payment. Are those scheduled debts? And that's on page 11.
Can you flip that page up? Thank you.
Towards the bottom left, it's on the screen. 50,000, 10,000, 5,000. You know, we have these obligations outstanding, but do we have a set payment date on those, or is that just based on our?
Well, the downtown improvement grants are just for, available for whenever anybody would apply. The Midtown, the interest on public utility loan, that's due and payable when but they have to pay us, and then we pay that to public utilities. So those are just pass-throughs from our loans.
Okay, so we have outstanding obligations, but we don't pay them until we receive monies.
Correct.
All right. All right. All right. I'm done with my questions. Anyone else, any other questions on the financials?
I had one more. Heidi was gonna come up with a new, more readable format a few months ago. Is she making any progress on that, or is she?
Well, this is the format that she's proposing.
Looks like there's not much difference, but
I see some different colors in there, but. You know what, if this is her final format, or if she's still working on it, either way, when she does complete that, maybe she could come in and help us read it. I've struggled with this for years, just understanding what these numbers mean.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay,
that'd be great. I know after Bruce Imholt left.
me too.
Development Authority, he was always the go-to to answer some of the CPA related questions, so that'd be great. So do I have any motion on the?
I'd like to make a motion with the exception that we defer that payment for the insurance of $8,486 until our next month's meeting.
Second. So motion by Ron, the second by Matt. We'll go roll call. Dale?
Aye.
Phil?
Yes,
Matt?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
GL?
Aye.
All right. So no opposition, motion carried. All right, under new business, I'm guessing Larry, you're going to be speaking on items 4A and 4B. So let's start with 4A.
Yes, 4A is the consideration to establishing an ad hoc committee relative to the near north side redevelopment project. That would be the redevelopment of the Gooden property and the highway department in that area of town. It's been suggested that we set up an ad hoc committee that would include a couple of development authority members, me, Kelsey, and maybe a couple of developers like Skip Duchesneau or Jim Boos or people like that who have been involved in either housing developments or retail developments that might express some interest in how that development could work, or maybe that it wouldn't work. But I think it would be good to have a group that sits down, takes a look at it, and comes back with a report to the Development Authority.
So the process of putting that out, is that something you want to put out to the general public? And like, you know,
I think we would probably just invite a few developers like the ones that I mentioned.
at the risk of not stepping on any toes, how do you propose that if someone says, well, why weren't we invited?
Well, it's pretty hard to be cover everybody and not miss anybody. That's why I don't recommend realtors to people or anything like that, because you're going to forget somebody. But certainly if anybody has ideas of who might be likely candidates, I would certainly be interested in hearing that.
Larry, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I mean, we guys looking for subgroup of the development authority that can go and meet with some of these developers and gauge interest, right? I mean, they wouldn't necessarily be on the committee, we would just.
I see. I misunderstood what you were suggesting. So, okay, Kelsey is suggesting then a committee, an ad hoc committee that would meet with different developers and talk about the project and gauge what their thoughts were on it in that perspective. So yes, then we would want a pretty comprehensive list of people.
Mike, I'd like to be added to that list, please.
Okay, so Matt Toki has stepped forward with his willingness to be on that ad hoc committee. I'll do
I'd
it.
like to be on it too.
Oh, you want, okay.
Well,
Well, it could be three of us, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're
Yeah.
not opposed to more than.
Yeah,
Well, the issue is that we're trying to do a subcommittee where we don't have to do a full development authority meeting and post it every time we get together and talk about it.
And what are-
Because
what's the criteria? that triggers that?
As a quorum.
Or that creates a quorum for development?
We would have to have 3 people or less.
We have 3 people that have stepped forward. So
Who's gonna lead that then? Ron, you wanna set up meetings and stuff? And
I could set up meetings that work around with Larry and Kelsey as far as their schedule.
But, I mean, we gotta have discussions, county, we gotta touch on that, we gotta eventually some discussion, good install their property, and it's just hard to do that at a public meeting monthly, but certainly still come back and keep everyone
who's it?
informed.
So with these 3 being, willing to do it, we don't have to do public notes on it.
Who are the 3 people?
Ron, Matt, and Phil.
Okay. And I think Kelsey and I will get together and try and schedule those meetings and
So
let you know.
coordinate with them, Larry, as to what times might work best for them, just through email or something to kind of get that rolling. That'd be great. I want to set up any appointments and none of the committee members can join.
No, we wouldn't do that.
completely about planning. This isn't about
Kind of a
financing or anything like that, because Tom would be better, or you would be better on that.
No, purely a vision of the future. for
Okay,
everybody.
vision. Okay.
And see if there's actually interest.
Yeah.
And it might be good for next month meeting too, because for other members on this committee that aren't going to be one of the 3, have them come with some of their ideas too, what they're thinking too,
No, that'd be great.
as we get going there.
Well, we'll start with the RDG then, we'll go from, because they had some ideas, and then we'll hammer it out, and we'll come back to report next month. Yeah.
I mean, let me maybe back up. So part of this is, all right, so we have a first right refusal, good, right? We're gonna get this appraisal back in this next month. And we're gonna be staring at a decision that's gonna be probably millions of dollars on whether this is a go or not, right? So to me, there's just a lot of legwork between now and authorizing millions of dollars in expenditures. I mean, we got to do some due diligence, figuring out what is that plan, county's still on board with, holding that land or selling that land or part of the development. What is the interest out there in the development? Do our plans have any chance in the real world of actually being successful? So I would think there's a lot of legwork that we're going to have to get to before next month we get the appraisal. I don't think we just pull the trigger and say, yep, let's buy the building. I just think there's going to be a little more work.
Just a reminder, Kelsey, what's the time frame? That, right, the option.
Like, 3 years later.
Larry, can you answer that question? The option.
They don't have an option, they have a right of first refusal. So if we get an offer on that property that we're willing to accept, then they have 10 days to exercise their right of first refusal.
Have you had any discussions with the county about their highway department piece?
Not about their existing problem. We've talked about.
No, I'm sorry, they're all on the north side there. Because last I heard, they said if you're the highest bidder, it's yours. I didn't know if that still stands true or.
Yeah, I mean, pre-pandemic, we had a meeting, Larry and I did with Larry Foods and Mike Works, and they were being very willing to work with the development authority on whatever our plan was. We talked a little bit about what our business was. They seem very receptive to it. That's when we were working on the plan sale on North Tower Road. That was a while ago.
Yeah, and Olander had, they were interested in one of the buildings from the county, I think. So there was a whole bunch of things going on, but nobody, pre-pandemic, nobody, I don't know where any of that's at.
And if you remember before the pandemic, we met with Olander and I think all those things have to be
Revisited.
revisited.
And where's the county at as far as groundbreaking for their new building?
I think they would like to break ground this fall.
Yeah, so that's coming up fast too, so. So virtually year from fall, that property would be available for whatever.
So is your hope to have the appraisal received and have an ad hoc committee kind of come forward with, once that number is in place, to know actually a feasibility is as much as anything. And we might have sticker shock on the appraisal, and we might just
I just think this is
redirect
stuff
that
that,
path.
this is stuff that Larry and I
Yep.
shouldn't necessarily do alone, we can
Correct.
include some members, part of that stuff.
Okay, with that revision, you're all still on board though, to be part of that ad hoc committee?
I'd be more than happy to, if there's another individual who wants to serve, seeing as two councilmen stepped up. If somebody else has interest, I'm fine with that too.
You know what, I'd like to get Larry and maybe Kelsey's opinion. Would you prefer to have a different committee with some expertise? You know, I think about financing and stuff like that, and that Tom and Mike are probably way better than I am, for sure.
This is all about deciding what type of project is feasible and what type of project developers would find feasible for that area.
Yeah.
Now, let's say we propose some sort of mixed use with housing and they just absolutely say housing is not going to work there. We don't want to try and forge ahead with something that's not something that people who do this kind of project would be interested in funding.
Larry, when you first talked about this instrument or this item here this afternoon, did you mention some people's names outside of this group, community members that were interested? Are they, is this?
No, those are people that we would interview and talk about to see what their thoughts would be on this type of project.
And one of them is one of the guys from that, Jim Booth, yeah. Is that correct? With your Jim or partner, James, is it?
Yes. That's
JVC. JVC.
So how do you sort out how many, or those people outside of members that might be candidates from this group?
But I don't think that ad hoc, we would want to add those folks to the ad hoc. I think the ad hoc would approach those guys and say, is this something that's feasible from a private developer's side? Is this something that's appealing to you?
You're gonna reach out to developers.
Correct,
and
yeah,
have conversations.
yep, to JBC, to Boost, to those guys.
And whoever else, yeah.
You can decide how many you want to converse with based upon what you're finding, whether or not there's.
Yeah, they might see you're on crack, you don't need a 6-story parking garage there. Well, okay, let's start over again.
So why wouldn't you include one of those, or two of those people in the original, ad hoc committee?
We're just forming a committee from within the development.
Yep.
And they're gonna have conversations with people. Okay.
So we don't spend all of our time
Yep.
spitballing at this meeting. We come back and report our findings, and that's kind of the thing we had, right? So,
Right.
Embrace that you three are willing to be on the ad hoc committee, and much appreciated. And we will consider, do we need a motion on something like this? Robert's rules, we don't have time here, but Robert's rules, so is this more like consensus? All right, we will move forward. Thank you very much for your willingness to participate. Item 4B, Larry, can you speak about the consideration of ordering an engineering report for the development of Tower Road Industrial Park? This must relate to some conversation from last month's minutes.
Well, right. Last month, the subject was raised about trying to provide additional industrial park lots so that we have things available for future development. And one of the things that we could do to move that forward would be to get a preliminary engineering report for developing the rest of the Tower Road Industrial Park, which would create another 12 to 13 lots. So the cost of something like that would be somewhere around $5,000. And I think it would be money well spent, and it would give us a chance to start looking at other funding sources to try and fund that when the time comes.
So Larry, for $5,000, we receive a report and it draws out the lines and a little more information.
That's just an estimate.
Okay, those typically don't age out, do they? They're not,
Well, of course they do, because prices change all the time.
but
It gives you a good handle on it, and you can apply some factors to it to get pretty close to where you're a good estimate.
okay.
So they do last a while.
So Larry, would they deal with topography, soil conditions?
A little bit, but not intensively, because it's a preliminary study.
Does that come down a little more dependent upon who's building on those parcels? You know,
Well,
probably.
mostly they're going to be looking at the areas where you want to put the roads
Okay,
and not so much where the lots are.
okay.
That's a good question. I'm just trying to figure out the benefit of this. Whatever benefit.
Well, we were discussing last month, and I think Ron was the one who brought up most of it, saying, hey, how it's virtually impossible to sell these lots when there's no true road in there, and there's nothing to find in there. So we might be missing out on opportunities to sell these when it's just, oh, we have some land. So with more ambiguity than.
When you look at issues like where would they run water and sewer, for example, utilities? Yeah. That bill for it, but yeah.
And I think the Dale's part thing, you have to a little bit our process of the city for especially into assessments, the process we do preliminary engineering report, which gives you kind of a little bit better than $10 a foot view of here's some ballpark costs, what the costs are per lot. Here's roughly where the roads and infrastructure will go. If this looks feasible, then the next step is moving forward. And that's actually a process that we follow. We have to first actually for assessments. So in like subdivision, we do the same thing. We do a preliminary engineering report, determine that it's feasible, that this stands a chance, then we come back and do it. Part of this is for some grant funding. We look at either a state grant app, federal EDA is getting some of this American Rescue Plan money. Maybe there's an application there. So just getting an estimate what that cost is beneficial.
This is just off Tower Road, you said? Just south of Tower Road?
It's basically finishing the park.
I mean, I've seen, like there's a cul-de-sac that comes in there, by that absolute ice in there. That's probably not gonna happen because if the city and the county go together, that road is gonna be absorbed, right? I mean, some of this is done, so it's just re-upping.
Being a little bit east of that, there's a road between,
Utilities,
there's a road further east that is.
but there's a road that is supposed to be in there that's probably not gonna be.
And that's,
Yeah, that road has been vacated, and we would not be putting that into place. So this study would just be the area further to the west where we could develop some additional lots.
so it would come in by.
And if you wanted to go into more detail on grading lots and making studies on what the soils conditions are there, that would add some cost to your project, but it might also have the benefit of making lots more saleable if they were, filled and leveled up and ready for construction.
Has there been requests for lots so that do not fit the buyer's requirements?
Not at this point in time, but there have been quite a few requests for lots and a lot of tire kickers this spring.
So this would be a very forward-thinking thing to get things ready for something that happens.
Yes, yep.
$5,000's not a lot of it.
So Larry, are you looking for approval to get a bid and move forward, or are you looking for approval?
Yes, I'm looking for getting a quote from our engineer and moving forward if it's an acceptable dollar amount.
I'd make a motion to obtain the PER for this development. Preliminary engineering report.
Second. So we have a motion by Matt and a second by Dale. All right, by roll call, Dale?
No,
I'm sorry, any
that's
additional
gonna
discussion?
report what Dale was mentioning about getting soil and all that stuff. And then as well as putting in where roads and stuff, in. So we're gonna have both of those come back in this report then.
I'm guessing, Larry, not for $5,000.
We're
will
talking,
not be
we
getting
heard
soil.
12,000 to start when we talked, and now we're talking 5,000, so is that combined 17 or?
I'm sorry.
I don't, well, we heard 12,000 originally, I thought, when we started.
I don't recall 12,000. I
I heard
remember $5,000 being discussed for more preliminary engineering report, nothing on soils.
But I thought Larry said
Purely on the
something about,
layout of the property.
well, Larry says about 12 to 13 lots, about $12,000. What was that about?
No, 12 to 13 lots. I estimated the preliminary engineering study to be about $5,000.
Okay, I
It's
thought,
just a rough estimate. If we want to include studies for soils and grading lots, that would be a whole different study. I'm just talking about sewer, water, and streets at this point. But if you want to go further,
I
we can
guess,
get a quote for that as well.
I guess my motion just included the preliminary engineering report that left out the soil and all topography to this point.
Okay, very good.
Okay,
okay,
so
all right.
thanks,
Okay.
Ron. Any additional discussion? And I apologize for not.
No.
Bringing around more than that. All right, back to vote. Dale?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Ron? And GL?
Yes.
All right, a motion carries. Thank you very much.
I think you got the number of lots mixed up with the dollar.
That's probably what it was on it.
At least it's getting cheaper though.
Yeah.
Seems like a bargain. All right. Moving on to old business, we'll pretty much mimic whatever Tom says in all the prior meetings. These are just for informational purposes only. But does anyone have any questions on items 5A or 5B?
I have on B, and this is just a thought, you know, when those, I've been on this development authority for 7 or 8 years, those lots, all of our lots in the industrial park were at a price on. Is that still valid? Should we keep it the same? Should those prices be updated? Are they worth more? Are they worth less? Larry, any?
Well, there's two ways you can determine the price of lots. You can take a look at what's available in the county, which is not much. Most of the industrial lots are the ones that we have. The other option you would have would be to have them appraised and maybe readjust your pricing based on some appraised values.
Does anybody have any problems with the prices? I don't have a good feel if those are good prices or not. I know people come in, they try to negotiate a little bit. But
Well, doesn't matter what price you put on it, people are going to negotiate and try to get it for something less.
agreed.
Um,
Does
And
anyone,
our goal isn't to make a profit, so we aren't necessarily selling lots at their highest value. We're trying to encourage development, so you have to factor that in as well.
Mike is a banker, who sells stuff like this? Is this taking what Larry, I agree with what Larry said, taking that into consideration. Are we in the ballpark? We must be.
Oh, yeah, I think these are all very reasonably priced. You know, I guess we've had a number of them move, you know, over the last year. You know, a number of those have been on contract for deep, but there has been activity. And I do agree with Larry, we're not out to retire or pad our pensions and.
Well, I guess one question I have, I see we got about approximately 20 lots left to sell in our industrial park, Larry.
Not even 20,
Not even 20.
less than that.
I guess I'm saying if, just say that in the next 5 years, we sold all these 20 lots, that we had to go out and buy another chunk of land someplace. I don't know what that price would be, but would we make enough money off these lots so we could afford to buy a new stretch of land without having to go out and take it out alone because we were short money. That was, so I might go back to where we're saying, do we have the right price on these lots with the way real estate and everything else is going through the roof? You know, if we did sell all these in the next 3, 4, 5 years, and we had to go out and where would that next piece of land be and how much would it cost to do what we have to do? So I guess it would kind of go back to what Bill's saying. Do we have the right price? Would it be like me if I went out, tried to sell my house off for 300, found out to replace it's gonna cost me 450? How did I come out on it? Not too well.
Ron, the way that we have done this in the past is we have purchased the land and developed the property, and then we've set the price to not to necessarily profit from it, but to recover the cost that we've put into that. And that's what we would do in a future development is we would pay whatever it is for the land. We would do the development and then we would factor out what we need to get to make that whole. And that's the way we would continue to do it. So it wouldn't be that we're trying to sell these old lots so that we can replace them with lots at the new price. That's not the way that we've done it.
So if future lot costs are double because of that's what land is and development costs are in that future point, we accept that and we
go from there. Yeah.
So 2 things on that. I mean, I think at some point in the future, when all this comes to a head and we've got 20 lots sold up there, you know, is this organization more interested in developing the near north side with finances or going out and buying a new piece of land? I mean, those questions are just something to think about going forward. We had talked before about that next area of development for an industrial park was north of Walmart across the tracks, that Brandy Lake area out there. We had talked about that. I'm just floating that out there. We've never done anything on it. We just talked. Just FYI. So, you know, if you had the opportunity today to buy some land that would reach our capacity, would we buy land out there north of Brandy Lake to create a development, an industrial park? Or if we could use that money to redevelop the Gooden, this area, the near north side, I think you really got to ask yourself that question: what is more important, and prioritize that. And I don't know what the answer is. And maybe they happen in step and it just happens perfectly, but more often I've seen you had to make tough decisions, and that might be a tough decision. They might have to make something.
Well, I think it's two different things. They've got apples and oranges there because
They're both development. I mean,
we're talking, you know, industrial development where we're maybe get into new industry in town. The other one is about redoing that north side there where we'd have business, housing, whatever it might be, just to shape up and clean up that part of the town. So I think they're a little bit different on it, but
finances are limited. So like if you had to choose, which would you choose, Ron?
well, I guess whoever's knocking at your door on it, you know, if we go out on this ad hoc thing and we find a developer that says, yeah, I've been thinking about doing this for years in that area, combination of whatever it might be, apartment houses and as far as maybe some retail or whatever, you know, that if that was there, you know, I don't know if it is or not, but we could certainly use some of the retail. And
Well, Phil, you're right. We do have to think about it, and it would be difficult choices to make. It's always good to be looking forward to where you're going to do your next industrial park development. And if you can acquire that property, it's good to do so. It might be 20 years before you actually develop it, but you've got to have it. And it's that's the way we've done it in the past. And we've done developments in town like we did downtown Crossing. So we assembled all of that property and made that happen. But that was partly due to the fact that we had the highway vacation or turnback property then. And so then we acquired a few other key properties to make that work. And that took a number of years to develop as well. So I think the same thing could happen here. We could be on the lookout for that industrial site that we might want to try and acquire, but we might also want to be working towards this near north side project and assembling property that somebody can take and invest in, and we can do tax increment financing and make a development there as well. So timing is important, and it does come down to sometimes having to choose one over the other, or figuring out what time you're going to do one and then when you're going to be able to do the other once you've completed the whichever one comes first.
But Larry, how many industrial lots have we sold the last 5 years?
Ron, I don't necessarily have that information off the top of my head, but we sold 4 lots to Accessories Unlimited in the last 5 years.
Absolutely. Last 5 years.
We sold 1 lot to Minnesota Energy. We sold 1 to the pizza company. We sold 1 to Josh Miller. And to Absolute Ice. So there's been probably a half a dozen lots that have sold. So it's been pretty active, but prior to then, it was probably a little bit slow.
Interest rates are down now.
And this year, we've been having a lot of activity, a lot of asking questions, so just goes up and down.
You know, there's another perspective, I think, when you think about them, that it's a little bit out of the box. And I was on the industrial development committee, the group 20 years ago for many, many years. I wasn't on the original one with John Meyer and Bill Johnson, some of those guys. But, you know, this business industrial parks, been around a long time, and that's what our primary emphasis. But if you really just take a look at it, there's been lots of development outside of the parks that have attractions to people all along Highway 10, going east of town. And, you know, maybe we shouldn't just think about park. Maybe we should think of when, how about Eisner's open, when sites that would qualify for industrial development that are off that have highway access, good access, and look at investments and things, and potential sites outside of just being in the park. For some reason, these lots have always been available to all those people who didn't build there. People don't work. Me, that tells us something.
Well, some people have built, some people chose. to build.
Right, I know, yeah, some have, but some haven't. And so we kind of, box, in a way, we just like box itself in the park that way. I think that's what- That's just a good idea of where, by history, where it actually was built.
No, so quite, no. So my question is then, what are our limitations as far as acquiring lots, single lots? As they become available, in the listings and everything? And are we limited by acquiring properties within the city limits?
We are limited to working within the city limits of the city of Detroit Lakes. But I don't think we want to start necessarily being the market and buying up properties as they become available. We do want the private market to function and private businesses to be able to just go out into the market and buy property and develop it without us having to be involved.
Well,
We can't afford to be trying to run everything that happens and make sure that property gets bought and sold. We need to stay out of that and let that stuff happen that happens on its own.
Does the county have a group that deals with county development in this area?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who's talking? Because right now I can't hear you.
Dale is speaking.
Yes, the county has an economic development guy, Fisher, but I don't think they're nearly as active as the city. Kelsey and Larry, maybe you guys, it seems like a lot more happens here than with that. I don't know. They do have a person.
I would agree.
Pretty inactive. So Larry, how about properties that are blighted though? I mean, let's say there's a property that goes up for sale and, everyone's a little bit scared of it because of the uncertainty of the home building property or something. Could we look at those? Clean it up and present a saleable lot, or should that be something left to developers as well?
That's a hard question to answer with just one pat answer. It depends on a lot of different factors. And I think if you start getting involved in buying properties sometimes you push the market up higher because there's a ready buyer to buy it up. And sometimes the price that people put on things is a bit unrealistic, and it's not good for us to step in and buy something at an unrealistic price instead of letting the market forces drive it down if it's way out of line.
I was gonna say, a few months ago, we talked about the housing authority, Mr. Keena came in and the housing authority is looking at, presenting a program to the city at budget time, because they have a right to do some levying, to do something where they can fix up some of these neighborhoods and fix up some of these houses that need some rehabbing, along with Wahoobi and whoever else that might have programs like that to help, help these neighborhoods or some, and they're all over town, actually. It's not just the north side, it's over by the Legion Club, and it's all over, just trying to do some rehab, and that's gonna be coming up, and I don't know how much the development authority is gonna be able to help with some of that for rehab. But some of that is out there right now going forward.
So since we're currently confined to development, encouraging the development within the corporate limits, what land is has potential within the corporate limits as they exist today?
But Larry, we purchased it and have it annexed in. I mean, the Anderson property on north of Highway 10, that's not the city limits, but we acquired it and annexed it in.
Right, right.
In my mind, if we're looking for other property, I mean, we approach the school district. I mean, they got that huge parcel at 40 acres sitting out north of ours. I think they still own it, to my knowledge.
They still have it.
I mean, that.
Yeah, and I can only say that I think the school district paid a very high price for a piece of property that has a very limited value because it's partially within the shoreland district of a lake. So the amount of property that can be developed there is limited, and it's a natural environment lake, so you can't even use it for industrial property. So I'm not interested in bailing out the school district on that one.
But yet, there again, are we short-sighted, to Dale's point, of looking just at industrial park? Could that be housing? Could that be other things outside industrial park?
Maybe, but there's other places that might be even more valuable than that.
Well, and I was just using that as an example to be.
Yeah, okay.
Limits,
Right.
but annexing them in, they're right there.
I guess
So-
what I'm looking at, and maybe it already exists, is a map that has, obviously we have them, which identify the corporate limits, and people look at specifically as the potential site.
That's, I mean, yeah, that's readily on the website.
Yeah.
Larry and I have, we have one.
Would you be?
And the zoning, what it's zoned for, and then it's. Maybe some time could be allotted at the next meeting to have a kind of even a refresher or kind of a tutorial as to how to research that online or something.
Because there might be limitations, so for example, the number of tons you can haul on a road, at a particular street, and so might eliminate some areas versus another. If you know what some of the restrictions or restrictive things might be, it eliminates them and see what's left over. What do we really have at a
Larry would be the good resource to go and sit down with him for an hour and get that hash price that we do. Well, old business generated.
One last question. Looking at page 11 here with the prices on there, going back to Phil's point, do any of those have assessments on them as well, above the purchase price?
No, the purchase price includes all of the assessments. There's
Okay.
no other cost.
So they are a
Okay.
reasonable price.
Yep.
So that is-
Very reasonable.
But going back, just say, take that top lot 4, block 1, 2.25 acres, $56,000. Well, let's say we did go ahead and find a new area for industrial sites. We said, well, geez, it's industrial lot here now for the same identical lot, same zoning, everything. Geez, that lot now is gonna cost us $85,000. To me, a little bit, I kind of think we should be looking at these prices if they have gone up that much with the way other real estate is. I guess my concern is that, we could have a kind of a happy medium, because you're jumping up too much and you might take us out of the ballpark of having people wanting to look at us here in Detroit Lakes. I'm just thinking that maybe we should look at the assessments of some of that stuff. As far as what these lots would be based on what the land price, and I don't know what the land prices are right now. I just, do any of us know what I think we should maybe somehow look at that and just see.
To what end?
Well, just to see what that lot would actually cost if we had to go out and buy a chunk of land now, and here's what the land is. We had to go ahead and develop it, and to find out, did it go up 20, 30,000? I mean, I guess.
So are we gonna raise it then? And then
Well,
make it less?
I think we should maybe have a happy medium of some kind in there.
I mean, our current pricing is about $25,000 per acre. So start doing the math, and you have what does it cost to buy
Yeah,
more land around Detroit Lakes?
I don't know, what is that? What developer?
I'm saying just to buy the acres is probably gonna be $13,000 per acre private price. Outside of town.
When we did an appraisal of land, when we were comparing ourselves with the county, they came up with about $12,000 per acre for bare land.
That study done, was that recent or is that 10 years old? 1 or 2 years ago?
Well, it's a few years ago.
Okay.
But the reality is your assessments, I think, what your points you've already made, that you're not gonna get 10-ton road in with water and sewer in on 2.5 acres or 2.25 versus probably looking at $40,000-$50,000 per lot. For
For 1 acre lot?
2-acre lot. I'm hoping maybe around 50.
so then you're saying that'd be 100,000 plus.
Well, for the lot, so, you know, you're still probably.
But what we're trying to do is compete with other cities who are selling land or maybe even giving land away to other people. So we want to keep our cost as low as we can without losing money on it. And that's what we've set our prices for.
So like Kelsey points out, we're gonna have this PER completed on some of these lots in the Tower Road development. That might be a pretty good indicator for future costs for some projects, similar projects. So maybe we can garner a little additional information and discuss for discussion with that.
I don't want to be greedy, Larry, but I don't want us to end up losing out on it either. It's just with what's happening with all
Well,
this.
look, I like what Larry said. He said, you know, we've got our costs covered in there, but we're not trying to make a killing. And that's, you know, I want to make sure that we're whole when we get out, but we are a development authority. We're trying to encourage development. So I'm very happy with what they're at now. I just wanted to make sure somebody had looked at it because I don't know what that price means. You know, and I know it's been there for 10 years since I've been looking at the same sheet. So that was the impetus for that question. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if all those lots were sold today, we had no more lots to sell, we had to go out and build, and now they're 100,000. You know, then you're saying people are gonna compare to other communities. Geez, look at the Detroit Lakes, their lots are 100,000 now, so I don't know.
Would that be a bad thing?
Well,
Then we'd have a problem with people.
Because
Where do we
that
have people
probably
that
a
work
market
at
at
that
the time
time,
too.
Yeah,
If
well,
if that's what the market is, Ron, I think that would be a reflection of the market. And I think that's where we would have to be.
Be no different than housing.
yeah.
All right, any other discussions on items 5, let's see, 5A and B? All good discussion. All right, I will go around the room, and if anyone has any additional items they'd like to discuss, feel free. Dale? Kelsey?
No, it's all good discussion. These are things we talked about in the office.
Larry, are you gonna lead the ad hoc committee, or Kelsey, or who's gonna take the initiative on that and say when we're gonna be?
I'll take the lead on that.
All right, that's all.
Matt?
Have we heard the groundbreaking for Aldi or when that's slated to go?
They have not closed on the property yet. So once that happens and their building permit gets approved, they'll be starting.
Okay, So have we
I
heard
don't,
anything from other than this summer?
it's still sometime this summer. I haven't heard anything new.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
Ron?
Well, the thing that comes up as I hear from people is affordable housing, and it is a big issue in every city across the country right now. And we're having this here in Detroit Lakes, the realtor buddies are down to 8 houses in the city limits of Detroit Lakes to sell. So it's, if you're gonna go out and build a new house, you know what those are, so I don't know what we can do about.
Apartments are being built, houses are being built, houses are being renovated. There's one that I look out across the community center that is just, it's been empty for years, an old dilapidated house. We talked a couple of years ago about, you know, how do we redevelop that, get somebody in there? Sewer, water, street are all going right by there and nobody's living there. So we talk about it, I don't know what to do about it either.
But anyway, that is up from there. And like we've got, I just was called by somebody on Ralph Adams' old house, and that's owned by an attorney in Fargo. And that house was a beautiful home when we bought it, and it's just over the last 8 to 10 years, it's just going down and down. And I said, why would a guy buy a house like that and just let it melt away? I don't understand that, but that's what happened then, and there's nothing we can really do about it. So it's,
Well, we did take some action with the Bristlin subdivision to approve tax increment financing for some affordable housing construction there. And I do think that the short-term rentals are really hurting our existing long-term housing stock as well.
Can you restate that? So you're saying short-term rentals are impacted?
Short-term, we're getting more and more short-term rentals, and so those properties are no longer available for
Oh,
normal of, long-term affordable housing.
yeah, the $200,000 homes are being snapped up by investors to rent. You're saying.
Listen, you
Right.
can't make a $200,000 home with inequality anymore. It does not exist, especially at current prices. I mean, I'd even say maybe a $300,000 home.
Yeah.
2-3 bedroom, couple baths. I mean, they don't exist. They do not exist.
in a 60-foot lot, like those people on Floyd Lake are complaining about Brisbane because they're 60-foot lot, but that's what they're building for, to help those people when we got 250 to 300 range.
We talk about the fire codes, we talk about the electrical code. Now every house has to have a cutoff on the outside of the house, another $1,000. I mean, you can't build to code new builds anymore. You just can't. Not cost effective, not at the prices people are getting at lake shirts, and it just doesn't match.
All right. Continuing on, Larry, do you have any additional items to add?
I have nothing to add.
Jen? No? Enjoying not saying anything. All right. If there is no objection, I intend to adjourn this meeting. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jen. Have a good day.
I talked to them, they said, we want to do